Every question about what it means to be human begins with this. We are made in the image of God. But what does that actually mean? Well, in this video, I want to show you something about the image of God in Genesis that most people have never noticed. The book of Genesis actually reveals two surprising truths about this phrase. One that redefines what the word image meant in the ancient world, and another that's illustrated in the life of a man you already know. And once you see it, it completely reshapes our understanding of what it means to represent God on earth. Well, my name is David, and I have developed hundreds of charts like this to help me teach the Bible. If you'd like a copy of this chart, you can download it in the description below. And when you do, go ahead and like and subscribe so you don't miss out on next week's video. My favorite systematic theology is Wayne Grudem. Got it on the shelf back here. His writing and the organization of his chapters is just so clear and structured and orderly. I love it. Well, his chapter on the image of God is chapter 21, and here's how he defines the imago Dei. He says, the fact that man is in the image of God means that man is like God and represents God. I actually like that. I mean, he's not trying to do too much with that definition, and he's communicating both being, man is like God, and also function, man represents God. In a footnote on the next page, Grudem is going to reference Millard Erickson, who summarizes the three main views of image of God throughout church history. The first is the substantive view, which seeks to identify some particular quality in man which we share with God, something like our reason or intellect or spirituality. The second is the relational view, which claims that man is like God in his ability to interact with other people and with God himself. Perhaps this also includes the fact that humanity is made as both male and female. And third is the functional view, which concerns our calling to exercise dominion over creation. Now, Grudem seems to lean more into the substantive view because 2 pages later, he is going to list 5 specific aspects of our likeness to God, 5 qualities that we share with God due to the fact that we're made in his image, according to Grudem. The first is moral aspects, that we all have an inner sense of right and wrong. And then he also lists spiritual aspects, that man has an immaterial and an immortal soul. He lists mental aspects as well, things like our reason, language, creativity, emotions, and finally relational aspects as well, that man forms into communities and families. That makes us like God in some sense. Those are all true and good, but Genesis 1 doesn't actually say that. When you slow down and look at the text itself, the word image isn't defined by any inner quality in man. You see, the author already assumes you know what an image is. Well, what is the word image in Hebrew? Let's open up to Genesis 1:26. Then God said, "Let us make man in our image after our likeness." The Hebrew word for image is tzelem. Now let's run a little word study on this word and see how it is translated. The word tzelem, it's pretty rare, only 15 times in the Old Testament. Let's look at some of the uses of tzelem, starting in Numbers 33. Then you shall drive out all the inhabitants of the land from before you and destroy all their figured stones and all of their metal tzelem. Destroy all their metal images, their metal tzelem. It's quite curious. Let's look at a couple more instances. This is out of 2 Kings 11. Then all the people of the land went to the house of Baal and tore it down, all of Baal's altars and all of his tzelem, all of his images, they broke in pieces. Look at Amos 5. You shall take up Sikkuth, your king, and Kayun, your star god, all of your tzelem, all of your images that you made for yourself. You see, an image or a tzelem is an idol statue. And this begins to make sense when you realize that all of creation is God's temple. You see, when you compare the creation account in Genesis 1 and 2 with the construction accounts of the tabernacle and later the temple, you realize something striking. Just as God completed his temple in Genesis 1 in 7 days, so Moses is going to receive the instructions for the tabernacle in Exodus 25 to 31 in 7 speeches from God, and then he's going to assemble the tabernacle in Exodus 40 in 7 acts of obedience, and then Solomon is going to build his temple in 7 years. And then after this construction is completed, we use the same Hebrew word in every case. The sky and the lands were completed. They were kala. The tabernacle was completed, kala. The temple was completed, kala. And then God is going to issue a blessing in each case, a barak, barak, barak. And then a Sabbath rest is going to be taken. You see, we have the same pattern in all 3 temples. And then God fills his newly established temple with his presence. In Exodus 40 and 1 Kings 8, it's going to use the language of a cloud and glory. But how does God fill creation with his presence in Genesis 1? He puts an idol into it. That's what humans are. We are idols, and that's where idols go. They go inside of a temple. The culminating act on day 6 of God's creation of his cosmic temple is to place an image of himself in sacred space. And consequently, that's why God is so opposed to idolatry. Don't make any graven images of me, God says, because I already made one, and it's you. So what then was the function or role of an image or an idol in the ancient world? Well, an idol was a localized embodiment of that deity. It was supposed to both represent and mediate its rule in that localized region. In Genesis, this means that humans are both reflections of God's character and representatives of God's rule. And that's why we're told to have dominion, to subdue the earth, to harness its raw potential, to work it and to keep it like the priest did in the temple, so that it may produce greater blessing and fruitfulness. And interestingly, the book of Genesis gives us a living example of this idea in a man who becomes the image of another ruler. And that man is Joseph. The Joseph story is overflowing with doubles or twin narratives. It begins with 2 opposition stories between Joseph and his brothers, and then 2 sexual temptation stories. We have Judah and Tamar in 38, and then Joseph and Mrs. Potiphar in 39, and then 2 sets of 2 dreams. And after Joseph interprets Pharaoh's dreams in chapter 41, he is exalted. And this moment is critically important, not just because it functions as the pivot or climax of the whole Joseph story, but also because it serves as a reflection on the meaning of the image of God. Let's take a look at this in Genesis 41. This is when Joseph rises to power, and Pharaoh says to him, "You shall be over my house. Only as regards to the throne will I be greater than you. See, I have set you over all the land of Egypt." And then Pharaoh took his signet ring and put it on Joseph's hand. He clothed Joseph with garments of fine linen, put a gold chain around his neck, and made Joseph ride in the 2nd chariot, commanding all of Egypt to bow down to Joseph. This moment, here in Genesis 41, Joseph effectively became the image of Pharaoh. He is going to look like Pharaoh. He's going to wear Pharaoh's ring. He's going to put Pharaoh's cloak over his shoulders, put Pharaoh's gold chain on his neck, ride in Pharaoh's chariot. He's going to rule over Pharaoh's kingdom as his representative. And then later in the story, Judah will even say to Joseph, "For you are like Pharaoh himself. You are in the likeness of Pharaoh." And get this, who procured a wife for Adam? Well, it was God. God made Adam's wife from his own rib. And who gave Joseph his wife? Well, it was the one in whose image he resembles. Check it out. In chapter 41, it was Pharaoh who gave Joseph his wife. Now, of course, this doesn't mean that Joseph is no longer in the image of God because now he's in the image of Pharaoh. No. Joseph's life as a model of Pharaoh helps to supply meaning to the concept of image of God. Take a look at what John Sailhammer says. I think this is helpful. This is how he explains these similarities. He says, Joseph seems to be represented as an ideal of what a truly wise and faithful man is like. He is a model of the ideal man or the ideal king. He accomplishes what Adam failed to do. It seems likely then that a conscious purpose lies behind these similarities with Genesis 1. The story of Joseph is a reflection on what might have been had Adam remained faithful to God and trusted him for the good. But at the same time, the picture of Joseph is an anticipation of what might yet still be, portraying the life of Joseph as a picture of the one who is to reign from the house of Judah. So when Genesis calls humanity the image of God, it's not so much about what we are as what we are for. You see, we are made to reflect God's character and to extend his rule. We are to be his royal representatives within creation. But that purpose didn't end with the fall. No, it was perfectly embodied in Christ, in Jesus, who is the image of God. He is the image of the invisible God, the exact imprint of his nature. And this image, through Christ, is now being restored in us. We now are being renewed in knowledge after the image of our Creator. That's what we're predestined for. Romans 8 says we are predestined to be conformed to the image of his Son. And we're being transformed right now, in this very moment, into the same image, from one degree of glory to another. But one day, this transformation, this restoration of the image of God in man will be complete. And on that day, those who bear his image will share his reign. Look at Revelation, the book of Revelation, chapter 5, verse 10. The saints will reign on the earth. They will reign with him forever and ever. That's what it means to be made in the image of God, to be a reflection of the true King, and to join him in ruling over the new creation in righteousness and wisdom and glory. But just like Joseph descended to the pit before he was exalted to the throne, so Jesus shares this U-shaped story. And if you want to see how the book of Philippians defines being in Christ as sharing the Joseph story, you should check out this next video.